with our dear colleague, and that's none other than another classmate of mine, the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Peter Welch. I yield the floor at this time.
Thank you, classmate, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's been so wonderful to be sitting here listening to members of the Congressional Black Caucus talk about their work, their friendship, their respect for a giant who walked among us, and of course, that's Elijah Cummings. The Congressional Black Caucus is regarded by many, myself included, the conscience of this Congress, and there was no better representative of that conscience than Elijah Cummings, who served for a couple of years as the chair of the Black Caucus. All of us who serve with Elijah are better for it and have fond memories and great appreciation for our friendship and admiration for him. You know, I was quite lucky because I have served with Elijah on the Oversight and Reform Committee for 13 years. So in those committees with you, my friend, Representative Clark, we really got to see Elijah face a lot of very, very tough situations. But Elijah and I'm going to make it a little bit personal here about some of my vivid experience I have with him. He and I worked very hard on the drug bill that is now going to be named in his honor to provide the government with the ability to negotiate lower prices so that the people he represents, we all represent, can get the drugs they need. And shortly after President Trump was elected, I think it was April of 2017, the president invited Elijah to the White House to talk about prescription drugs. And since I had been working with Elijah on this for years, Elijah invited me. I kind of crashed the party. Number one, how many of our colleagues would invite a junior member to a White House meeting just because the two of us had been working on the issue together? I'd like to say all of us would. Elijah did. And we went to the White House and we talked a lot about actually with the president about the prescription drug negotiation bill. But in the course of the conversation, the president expressed dismay about where Elijah lived. And this was before the president was saying the horrible things about that community with rats and rodents and all the other things. He was genuinely dismayed that a person in Congress could live in a community that the president just didn't think might take that he could ever live. And I remember Elijah was dismayed that anybody, including the President of the United States, didn't understand how wonderful the people were in that community, how dignified they were, how they faced adversity every single day, how they helped one another get up when somebody fell down. Elijah was astonished. He lived in the best place in the world. That was what he conveyed to the president, and he conveyed that he represented the best people in the world. That was Elijah Cummings. And then I remember the topic was prescription drugs, and Elijah was quite disciplined. You know, the topic is the topic. We'll get to the business at hand. But the question of voter fraud came up, and in the way that only Elijah can do, where he's not intimidated, but he's not showing off. And it's a fine balance. He just said in his direct way, we don't have a problem with voter fraud. We have a problem with voter suppression. And to be in the presence of this man in the Oval Office, where there was no artifice to Elijah's presence, there was no sense from Elijah of disrespect for the office, certainly, even though he disagreed with the president on so many things. But it was no different for Elijah than if he was in a local diner in Baltimore talking to the people he represented. Direct, to the point, and empathetic to the concerns of the people that he represented. So it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to see a great man in action. It's how he lived. It wasn't like he had to think about it. It wasn't like he had to calculate anything. He was present in that moment. And in that moment, as he was present every moment of the day, it was there for the people he represented, and he conveyed the immense appreciation and respect for the dignity of the people he represented and the humility that he felt that he had been given this opportunity to be their member of Congress. A special, special man. The memory of Elijah for all of us will sustain us through difficult times, and may his example be the one we aspire to follow. I thank my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus for this wonderful tribute to a wonderful leader from the ranks of the Congressional